welcome to another bite-sized ResDev in your PJs video with myself and Sanya. Today we are joined by Rachel Cox.
So, Rachel, welcome to our series. We know you're the Engagement and Policy Project Manager at Vitae. Could you tell us a little bit about your role and what how you support researchers on a national scale?
Sure. So yeah, as you said, I'm the Engagement and Policy Project Manager. It's very much a dual aspect role. So I think that encompasses some of what Vitae is about. You know, we have a mission to support researchers in realising their potential, and in that we work with a really broad audience of people. So from research developers like yourselves, sometimes directly with researchers, also with research leaders and policy makers across the stakeholder group. And so for my role in particular, it's very much on the engagement side, it's working with networks, bringing contacts together, facilitating discussions and initiatives for how we might support researchers in different aspects of their career development. And on the policy side, it's a bit more kind of getting in depth, reading and briefing and thinking about the landscape of research in the UK, but also globally. So yeah, I'm pulled in different directions a lot of times, but I very much get that broad view of different groups around the country and around the world. So I love working with yourselves on things like the Researcher Networks working group, but also the UK Research Staff Association. I've also worked around CEDARS, the latest iteration of Cause and Pearls, which are surveys that look at experiences of career development for researchers and also of leaders of research. And of course, most prominently working around the Concordat to support the career development of researchers, which is top of my agenda most days.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Rachel. It feels like there's loads that we could talk to you about, actually, but I think today we were quite interested in a connections event that I know that you were involved in, that I actually attended, and it was a great event. Thanks ever so much. But I think what we were hoping to find a little bit more about is sort of your on the organisation of something like that on an online event, and you know how it worked and didn't work, I suppose.
Sure. So I guess it might be useful to start off by telling you a bit about the event and how it would run in an average year. So usually this event runs in the springtime. It's aimed at people who are supporting researchers in their role, probably for a research institution, either in the UK or abroad. We have had some of our international members being involved. And so although the researcher development community is our core community, that event specifically is open to people from a careers background or who are taking on supervision or leadership in research. So it's quite a broad event. And the way in which we would decide on how we're going to deliver it for the needs of that group, it changes based on who the participants are going to be, which is a lot easier to do in person, because there's a lot more discussion based. You know, you're giving that opportunity for individuals to interact with each other, to talk about the challenges that they're facing in their new roles, and to kind of talk about some of the practice from different institutions. It was much harder to kind of find the space and develop that more informal conversation in a virtual event. And I think that's where that was really high up in my priorities list of how do we tackle that, because I knew it was going to be tricky. Networking virtually, I think we've all learned in the last few months, it is a bit artificial, and you have to kind of be a bit more, you have to embrace technology, you have to be more proactive than you might be otherwise. You're not going to have those informal conversations that you might over pouring a cup of tea or going to get a biscuit or standing in line for the loo. And I think that we have to try and create that space so that participants could feel like they could interact and contribute and work with each other. So just to kind of say, when it first got put to me, hey, let's put this event online, I was not up for it hugely. I was really reticent. I was thinking, oh God, how am I going to deliver something of that value for those participants in an online forum? You know, I have never delivered a full day event in that way. And I was really, I was really focused on how do we still meet those key learning objectives in this format, because it's going to be very different. I would say one of the main things was talking to the whole team and making sure that we bounced around a lot of different ideas to come to something that was going to deliver on those learning objectives and the aims for the participants. So it was really important to focus in that way for me. And then in terms of actually delivering on the day, that team again came into play in supporting the whole event. Whereas in person, we might send two Vitae staff and potentially an external trainer to deliver the event. We had, I think, eight or nine of us delivering on the day. And then we also had the addition, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, of support from our wider research development network, which was fantastic. So Sonia, you joined us, which was great. And having that team support was really vital to delivering an event that felt like it gave as much value to participants as a physical event.
So it sounds a little bit about having like a clear vision and aim on what you want something to feel like, and then allowing yourself the time to sort of let that evolve a little bit through the ideas that a few people bring to the table. Does that sound correct?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I think it's one of the ways in which we work in general is to think about, you know, what are the outcomes for our community, and how do we get to that place where it is as high value as possible, whether it's a consultation or surveying or delivering training or engagement events. It's all about, you know, what are they going to get out of it, and how do we craft this event to deliver that.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, as someone that did attend it, I think it was very successful, and I think you're right, it's hard to network virtually, but I think as well as that could happen, I think, you know, with the coffee spaces within teams and the social, you know, at the end again, I think that really did help there to be, and also the use of breaking people into different groups as well sort of allowed there to be those conversations. And I definitely I connected with people, so well done. I think it was a successful event. I suppose we move forward from these things now, and I know you have your conference in September, so you know what will be coming out of what you've learned and bringing forward into that. I suppose, what will it look like and continue to look like in the future?
Sure. So I think one of the things that worked really well for us and that we will be taking forward into the conference is thinking about different types of session throughout the day, different types of interactivity. So like I said, we used Microsoft Teams for a kind of a virtual coffee area, and we delivered on a platform, GoToMeeting. Now for our connections, we're going to be using Zoom for a big part of that, and that's effectively to facilitate those breakout groups, which you may have experienced. It's kind of like visualizing a full event and then breaking it down into rooms and then breaking it down into tables. And how do you do that with the technology that you have available? I don't think that we're, you know, we're not technology experts yet, but I think what we are delivering will be, you know, a good experience for the participants. In terms of the networking, so what we didn't kind of think about was the fact that within those individual workshops where we had fewer than 10 people, actually the networking was happening within those smaller groups. So we tried to artificially provide a space for networking, but actually it was happening as we were going through. So I think that's something to take away from that. So one of the things which we're going to need to develop, which wasn't in the Getting to Grips event, is how we interact with exhibitors, and also how we present posters. These are usually, reasonably physical spaces where people can either have a conversation with a partner or go and look at a physical poster. So how do we get to a point where that happens online in an organic way? And we're utilising our conference app, Bizzabo, to try and kind of create some of that social space and the kind of potential for community. We want the exhibitors to feel like they're able to access the conference participants as well, because there's value there for them. But there's also value for participants in learning about the different products that are out there. And if you don't just wander past whilst you're having your lunch, how are you going to start those conversations? So I'm still working my way through what that's going to look like in practice, but I think it's in the pipeline.
Lovely. So I suppose in closing this this video, it would be really nice, Rachel, to have sort of your reflection really on the event that we were talking about, and maybe some top tips that we can take away with us as well.
Sure. So on reflection, I think my favourite bit of the event was the panel session which we put together, and that will certainly feed into the Connections Week in September. I was able to pull together some really experienced colleagues from across different institutions, and it was really invigorating to kind of hear them talk about their practice and their speciality in different areas, and I think that having that group for those who are new to role was really a vital resource, which we at Vitae, we aren't bringing that. That's all about the community, and really that's something that I'm very keen to kind of work on, is how we pull those excellent expertise from the research development community into these engagement events. How can we work together to deliver that value for members in particular? In terms of top tips, information for participants is definitely one of the most important things. So even more important than an in-person event. If you're delivering something online, you need to make sure that they feel supported and comfortable to use the technology that you're making available through hosting. And although you can't be IT support for everyone, you do need to make them feel included and like they can take part in the session. Broadband issues, technology issues, there's always got to be a few different options to make sure that you've captured that. And if there is an issue where someone can't get online at all, that you have a backup. So you have a way to say, okay, well, we will feed in this information to you after the event or something like that, so that everyone feels like they can take part and they're not just isolated. Another top tip is timings, making sure that you start on time, that you are respectful of giving people enough time to arrive, and then to get going with the content of the event. Whereas an in-person event, it can be a bit more informal to have those conversations kind of at the beginning or towards the end of the event. That's not going to happen in the virtual arena, and it's your responsibility to make sure you're starting on time, you're allowing enough breaks throughout the day, because people can't sit there and listen to something for several hours with their headset on in one place. So thinking about how those breaks can split up the content that you have to allow participants to make the most of it and take the most away with them. You don't want them to feel like zombies at the end of it. And then lastly, I'd say digital housekeeping is a really important one. So whenever we run our webinars, we'll have a slide at the beginning to say, this webinar will start at 11 a.m. On this topic, and then we'll have an email address on there so that if anyone's having problems, they can just email that email address, say, oh, I'm having issues seeing the slides or something, and there is that potential to troubleshoot as you go along. We also use both the chat functionality of GoToMeeting or Zoom, to supplement the actual discussion happening live. So we will have a kind of a website admin person sitting in the background who can help with technology issues, but also we encourage people to have discussion in the chat alongside the presentation and alongside the live discussion. And we think that really adds value as another outlet for people to kind of engage with each other.
Wonderful, fantastic top tips. Thanks ever so much, Rachel. You've obviously learned so much from the event that you've been involved in.
Steep learning curve.
We're just really grateful to you, Rachel, for taking the time out today to have shared with us some of these tidbits. We're looking forward to the conference and to all the resources that Vitae make available, particularly from a Liverpool perspective. Being members, we know that all of our researchers have access to the resources and they can continue to access them at any time.
So thank you ever so much for chatting with us today. We really appreciate it, and we say to everyone, please look forward to our next ResDev in your PJs bite-sized videos. We also do have our Twitter check-ins and our chats, and we have many new exciting things coming, so please watch this space with regards to our ResDev in your PJs, and visit our researcher hub as well, where you'll find more information about this campaign and other activities as well. So thanks again to Rachel, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.